Welcome to Songkla Rajaput MOOC English for the Workplace program. Our next section is going to be on presentations. There are going to be four videos on presentations, one on basic structure, three on basic structure, and one on advanced techniques. Our basic structure presentation will be into three videos: the introduction, body, and conclusion. So first, let's talk about why people present. So there are five main reasons that people will give a presentation. One, to sell a product or service to a customer. Two, to teach others how to do something. Three, to inspire people to take action. Four, to show that you understand an idea. This might be the one that you're most common with in school. You have to do a presentation to your class and show your teacher you understand your subject, or maybe your master's presentation or thesis. And then last one is to give people some information. And that's what this one is. So let's start with outlining the basic structure of a presentation. English presentations are very similar to English essays. They have a beginning, a middle, and an end. They have an introduction, body, and conclusion. And so today I'm going to talk about individually to help us organize our ideas and give you language and phrases used in each of the sections to make it easier understood. So let's start with the introduction. Now, with the introduction, you are going to welcome your audience, introduce yourself, state your purpose, tell them what you're going to talk about or why you're talking to them, explain the content and the order of your presentation, and then give your audience instructions on when and how to ask questions. And I'll give you some language to explain how to do that. So first, welcome your audience. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, a very popular one. Good afternoon, everybody. Good morning, everybody. It's good to see you all here, a very informal way, especially if you know, or I'm very pleased to be here. I'm glad you can make it. And finally, thanks for inviting me. Thank you for coming, or thank you all for coming. All these are usually one of the first phrases said at the beginning, and my suggestion is choose one that you feel comfortable with. Some are more formal, some are informal. Choose one that's your style to your presentation and use that. Next, we have introduce yourself. So you have the my name's or I'm. So my name's Steve Judge, or I'm Steve, depending on if you want to do a more formal or informal presentation. Next, you want to give your credentials. So you would say your job and your company. So my name's Steve Judge. I'm a teacher with Rajaput University. So whatever your job or position and your company, because that explains the authority of why you're an expert speaking to your audience. Next is you want to state your purpose. What are you going to talk to them about? So there's a couple phrases. Again, choose your own. We have 4 here. I'm going to talk to you today about. I want to talk to you about. I'd like to talk to you about. And I'd like to start by saying something about. So they're all very similar meaning. Again, choose whatever one you feel comfortable with. Practice it a couple of times. And you also know when you're hearing an English presentation, when someone says this, you know what they're doing now. So we have a couple more phrases about state your purpose. We also have the purpose of my presentation is, I'm planning to tell you about, I'd like to introduce, and I want to help you with. Now the last one is my favorite. Before, when I was a salesperson, I like to do this one because it wasn't I want to sell you something. I want to help you with a problem by selling you my product. That's secretly my favorite. So step 3, state your purpose. Next, you want to outline your presentation. So you told them what you're going to talk about. Now you're going to give them the content and the order of your presentation. So I have an example here. My example is, to start with, I'll describe the progress we made this year. Then I'll mention some of the problems we've encountered and how we overcame them. After that, I'll consider the possibilities for future growth next year. Finally, I'll summarize my presentation before concluding with some recommendations. Now, there are 2 main things I have in this example that I want to point out to you. First are the sequence words. So you can see them in the blue graph here on the left-hand side. We have to start with, then, after that, finally. Next, I use words that are synonymous for talk about or say. And I used a couple of different meanings. So I used I'll describe, I'll mention, I'll consider, I'll summarize. Now, these words are very similar meaning to each other, and they have just a slight differences. So I want to go into sequence words, and then I want to go into words synonymous for talk about, so you can choose your own. So let's start with the sequence words. Our sequence words, so when you're in the beginning, the first part you want to hear are some of your sequence. So at the start, first, to begin with, to start with, I'll start by. Again, choose your own. Pick one and use that for your first point, your first stage in your presentation. The next stage, when you're going to move on to stage 2, 3, or 4, you're going to use then, after that, next, following that, or before. And then your last stage, ending, you're going to tell them so they know what point. So finally, to conclude, ending with, and concluding with. Again, they are all similar meaning. You just need to choose which one you think sounds better for your presentation. Now let's go into words that are synonymous with talk about. In presentations, one of the advanced techniques is repetition is key for people understanding and remembering what you say. What else is also important to keep people interested is to say the same thing a slightly different way. Because if you use the same words again and again, people become disinterested. So you want to say you're going to talk about, but here are a variety of different ways to say that with slightly different meanings. So here we have our words or phrases on the left-hand side. In the middle, we have the purpose or the meaning behind the word, and then an example on the right. So we have discuss, mention, and explain. Now, discuss is very similar to meaning you're going to talk about a topic. Very, almost exactly the same meaning. Mention has a slight different meaning because mention means you're going to just talk about it for a short time. And maybe you're not giving a lot of information, just a small bit of information on that topic. So mention has kind of a small, narrow information meaning to it. On the opposite, explain has a more detailed information. And we use explain when you're going to give reasons for or you're going to give detailed process of something. So an example, I'll explain why you want to remember by heart the first minute of your presentation. All my examples in the example are about giving a presentation. So they're examples of someone were giving a presentation on how to give a presentation. Should have pointed out that at the beginning. And our next example is I'll explain how to write the best conclusion. So we have, I'm going to give a process, how, I'll explain why and the reasons, 1, 2, 3, 4, for why, because, how, and or how to do. And we use explain. We also use describe, very similar to explain, or show, which is very similar to explain as well. So I'll talk about and give detailed information. I'll give important information on a topic or teach a process. So they're very similar to explain when you're going to give detailed. If you're going to just say you're going to give important information on a topic, these 3 phrases are very similar. I'll highlight, I'll point out, or I'll indicate. And we have our 3 examples on the side. I'll highlight 3 techniques to practice. I'll point out 3 techniques to practice. I'll indicate 3 techniques to practice. So very similar reason, or a very similar meaning, each one. Choose which one. And if you're going to do it more than once, you can choose a different each time. Next we have I'll look at, I'll consider, and I'll summarize. So look at means I'm going to talk about and explain and give information. So it's going to be detailed information. Consider, slightly different meaning. It means you're going to talk about the topic and then give your thoughts and ideas or feelings about the topic. So this is more of a personal reflection about whatever you're going to talk about. So you're warning them that some of the information is your own experience or biased. Summarize means you're going to give precise information on a topic. And you may have learned this already in school where your teacher asked you to summarize a book. What's the main idea? So you're going to give a condensed, a smaller version of information to them on a big topic. So summarize means you're going to narrow down and give a precise information on the topic. And again, we have our examples on the right. as well. That summarizes up the introduction. Please go on to our next video on the body. My name's Stephen Judge, and thank you for listening.